Anatoly will be joining me for the final set of today between NRG and Hungry for More. Obviously, NRG, world champions, Toly, and they're coming up against Hungry for More, who have taken games off them in the past. However, this season, not doing as well as we hoped.
Not so much, though. They do have 9 points currently with 3 wins. They did lose last week against Lobster and the boys. Now going to be against NRG, a very strong opponent. We'll see how they really stack up against this elite team.
The more I think about it, I don't know why I said they're not doing as well as we hoped. They've beaten basically everybody in the League 2 apart from Paradigm, and now they've got to face off against NRG as well. So we expect them to be around 3rd or 4th, maybe pushing the 3rd a little bit more than the 4th overall, especially with Cringe Crew and Dig being behind them.
Yeah, this is going to be the ultimate test for Hungry for More. NRG, they did find the split earlier last week against Cringe Crew. That kind of set a fire under them that they really wanted to prove themselves in that second game. We saw the total difference between the first and second game in that split.
I agree. I think they just took the foot off the gas a little bit too much there, and it really cost them that first game anyway, overall between the two. However, coming against Hungry for More, I think there'll be a bit more hands-on approach, so to speak, with this one, be a bit more aggressive overall.
They have to be if they want to have the amount of points that they need to get into that first seed going into the LAN stages. You want to put yourself in the best possible group, allowing yourself the chance to get into Super Regionals.
Well, Hungry for More's favorite god so far this split has been Yammyn. 7 times it's been picked, obviously between solo and support, because they're happy to flex it either way. Same time, though, Raijin on the side of NRG, been picked up 7 times by Yammyn in the mid lane. I'm expecting bans to these two or potentially counter picks.
It's going to be difficult to really determine where the picks and bans are going to be with Terra now being introduced into the meta.
How do you feel about Terra?
It's 100% pick and ban rate, and the way we've seen it against enemy, like that was a statement game out of Terra. It abuses guys that don't have a natural escape.
That's true.
Getting rooted into place, we saw all the zoning potential done onto PandaLike at the time, and he was just struggling against the Terra.
That's true, and then we've seen it, in the last couple of sets as well. Made an impact, even though he's not found 100% win ratio that we've seen out of some of the newer gods, but it hasn't been banned that much so far. I wonder if that'll start to happen as time goes on. For the time being, though, it's going to be junglers.
There's a lot of junglers that you always have to worry about, and that's why sometimes we'll see Terra go through. We've seen a lot of Fafnir and Bacchus go through recently because of this addition to the support.
Well, I guess that's a question I've got for you then. Would you prefer to have a Fafnir or a Terra on your team? Does it depend on comp?
It depends on what you're trying to set up, because Terra has great setup, has a root, has a stun. You can follow that up. We saw in the last set with Nox specifically. That was great setup with the Terra, but unfortunately, once the game progressed a little further, they couldn't win the team fights once because they found the isolation.
Well, NRG, they want Fafnir. They're not really interested in Terra right now. I wonder if Hungry for More will look for that route with PandaLike overall. Well, it's going to be Ratatoskr for the jungle for CaptainTwig, and the rise of Ratatoskr is really starting to hit form right now.
It's interesting to first pick Fafnir. More than likely going to pair this up with a Soul or a Freya trying to get that late game damage with attack speed boost. Already picking up the Ratatoskr and Vulcan, having those double knockups for Hungry for More. I like the setup that they have between the two.
And with the Vulcan for PrettyPriMe in the mid lane there, not a surprise to really see him go back to that. Played it 4 times so far, and an Isis pickup too, something that's fallen from favor as time has gone on. Her wave clear kind of dipped a little bit with power pop being taken out, but also her wing gust damage went down as well.
Well, either way, regardless of that fact, NRG, off of their mid and jungle picks, Isis and Fenrir, they're screaming early game aggression between Yammyn and adapting. They're going to try to look for these early plays, get first blood onto either of two, and then start looking for those early invades immediately after.
That's true. I mean, Vulcan does have a few issues against a Fenrir if it's played correctly, but at the same time, Vulcan can answer back to a Fenrir if he knows what he's doing. And if anybody knows what he's doing, it's those two players that are playing him, Prime and Adapting.
Well, the thing is, the Fenrir Brutalize will follow Vulcan through the backfire. You don't have the mini stun any longer with the meatball, so you can't stop the Brutalize, which makes it a pretty interesting pick for adapting.
Good point. If anything, then Fenrir is a little bit better, right, against Vulcan than he used to be because that stun's taken out by the meatball.
Absolutely.
Long time ago, but Bacchus has been locked in for Hungry for More's duo lane here. No Yammyn so far out of Hungry for More. And yeah, obviously no Raijin, so even though I had those stats about how many times we both played him, it didn't come into effect.
And that's just something that you have to take into consideration, that it's NRG. They're such an elite team that, like, yeah, they could play Raijin 7 times in a row, but at the same time, they'll play Hunters in the mid lane at any given moment. Their other pick other than Raijin was the Kyra mid for Yammyn, which is not a very common pick.
Not common at all. Carbon's coming through from NRG now. They're having a long, hard think. After Neath was taken out, I think that's what Hungry for More expecting to see emilitoo just default straight to that. And because we see the Terra ban.
This time around, it is going to be a Terra ban. They're thinking that maybe Hungry for More was going to put either Bacchus or Terra in that solo lane.
Terra if it's going to be either one of those.
Maybe they heard something about like scrims from Hungry for More.
Must have been. That's a surprising thing, because obviously Terraband doesn't surprise me, but it does when you've already got a Bacchus locked in.
There are ways to exploit Terra in the solo lane. When you use your double dash to clear the wave, now you're a sitting duck. There's a jungle gank would totally exploit that. And knowing adapting, he would be looking for that opportunity, though.
Well, now with Terra taken off the table, it allows NRG to actually pick up that Freya for themselves, and that's the Fafnir Freya dual lane we've seen multiple times. It's very effective, only been shut down by the Terra Jing.
And that's why they waited for their Hunter pick for so long. They wanted to go for the mid jungle synergy before locking in Fafnir and Freya together. Terra wasn't picked because they wanted to go for Bacchus. They didn't know what Hunter they could really exploit.
I'm so surprised by the Raven ban by Hungry for More there against Dimi when he's been defaulting a lot to Amaterasu overall there. But the fact is they could have banned this Freya away just in case they did look to pick it up. Obviously, they've banned Neef expecting something in the dual lane, and in the end they let Freya through.
Hungry for More, they're thinking of ways to kind of shut down emilitoo in the dual lane. They have Bacchus Jingwei, nice double knockup, potentially a Ratatoskr global, which could easily gank, especially with a Vulcan semi-global. He doesn't have to make the full rotation, just throw out the ultimate over the wall. Maybe this could be a strategy that Hungry for More are thinking about ways to shut down emilitoo.
Well, it's not often you get to say this, but Hungry for More have every single god has the ability to knock up in this game of their squad. That's unusual to be able to say that, but this game round, that's what seems to be the style. I'm surprised they didn't even look for an Awilix this game because of that.
Yeah, but going for that early Ratatoskr, you know, that kind of shuts down their ability to kind of get the synergy, unless they were going to go for an Awilix coming in the solo lane or a Ratatoskr in the solo lane. But a lot of teams are not really comfortable anymore running assassins in the solo lane ever since the recent changes to Season 3 items. And
is that because of Vanguard mainly you expect, or is it because of other things as well?
There's a combination of other things as well. Mostly Vanguard makes it a lot more difficult to try to trade it out. Like, you can have a Guardian in the solo lane with Mark of the Vanguard, and it will be trading efficiently with Mark of the Vanguard.
We'll start the game, no invades coming out here, looking for wards placed down between the two teams. We don't really see any of those either, so both teams trying to save on that income or expect a friendly decision from both teams not to invade in the early stages.
And neither team opting for the Wrath either. Dimi holding on to his Relic choice, not wanting to really show it off. This gives him the opportunity, if he snowballs with an early First Blood for whatever reason, he could go for a more offensive team fighting Relic.
Well, we'll see how we do in the mid lane as well, because Prime up against Yammyn is a fantastic matchup, especially when both of them are on gods that they're very elite and have proven it in the past. Isis and Vulcan both going at it.
I like what Dimi's doing. He opted to go for his first ability just to have that extra physical power for adapting in Dimi. We don't normally see this very often. I've seen too many Amaterasus going for that second ability for the damage clear, but this is more efficient in terms of min-maxing your clear.
But at the same time, you do get invaded off that one, totally. It's a little bit
very
risky,
possible,
right?
yeah. But you save your ability up until the last second of when you really want to commit to that buff.
Gotcha. I mean, if you did get invaded on as well and you had that one, it would have been spelled Doomsday. Right, and Harpy's going to go down very quickly to adapt in here, especially with Yammyn rotating in as well. Now the Fire Elementals can be looked at as well. However, going to give that up to Hungry for More's duo lane, and the lefts will be stripped by a nice rotation coming out from Hungry for More's duo lane.
Bacchus and Jingwei just able to out-clear the early game Freya and Fafnir. So great rotation from Hungry for More, splitting those mid-harpies.
And they've got to abuse that in the early stage when Freya and Fafnir are a little bit weaker. They don't have those abilities online just yet to really punish and get some aggression going.
They need to figure out ways to prevent emilitoo from getting to that late game. So like I mentioned before, this is probably Hungry for More strategy. Look for ways to outpush, but a little bit of aggression, forcing Ataraxia to dash away into the tower.
And that's the one thing about this lane as well. You don't really want to give knockups to Ataraxia so he can escape himself. So this works out with the stunts coming out from IRaffer and emilitoo's banish paying off as well.
They were only able to push that wave because of the rotation that Hungry for More made originally, conceding the lane ever so slightly, and that exploited by Hungry for More now going back into that rotation. And now in the mid lane, still looking for some aggression, adapting, waiting for the right opportunity. It's very difficult this early on for a Fenrir to find it, especially when the Vulcan is always going to hold hands with the Ratatoskr.
Well, over to the duo lane there, you can see some aggression coming out from NRG now. They got lane dominance for a second, and that's mainly because of that rotation we saw out of Hungry for More, but they do have a gold lead, Hungry for More, because of that rotation early on.
They're going to be waiting to look for even more if they can find somebody slipping, and more than likely that's going to be the rotation between mid and duo lane. There's going to be probably, that's where the action is, because solo lane tier versus Amaterasu, that's going to be kind of Resident Sleeper farm fest in early game.
Completely agree. I mean, from NRG's point of view then, and we said it's in a very early game composition with the Fenrir and Isis going for very aggressive plays early on. Where should the focus be? Usually it'd be Vulcan because he can't really stop them with the meatball anymore.
More than likely, you have to try to shut down these immobile gods. You know, Vulcan on the side of Hungry for More or Freya on the side of NRG. You're looking for these early game mages that kind of struggle with their mobility.
We'll see what Twig does as well on this Ratatoskr this game, because Twig's very predominantly known these days for farming, waiting for the mid-game opportunities, and capitalizing with his team with mainly counter-attacks. And to be fair, Ratatoskr fits that style as well.
He's also been doing a different style with Nemesis, where he'll go Wrath with a Nemesis. He'll be looking for those invades. We saw it in the last split, where the second half turned around a totally different style and identity for CaptainTwig and the rest of Hungry for More, where they were able to come back off of that 3-9 deficit.
Well, both junglers matching pace for the time being. Both have boots online. Obviously, Acorn is a boot in this terms of how this game's played overall. A little bit better stat efficient, though, overall. At least until next patch, and then we'll see how that fares in the grand scheme of things.
Both speed buffs are respawning, electing to opt for those instead of going for any type of invades. Neither team with a clear-cut advantage, still waiting for the right wards to spot somebody out of position and then isolating that target.
And I will say the straight-up team fighting around the mid-game is very even between these two teams as well, totally. I can't really side with one of the other. Maybe a little bit more control out of NRG here.
I would say that NRG have the better team fight in terms of their big ultimates, right? You have Yammyn with Circle of Protection, then you have iRaffer, but hold that thought in the solo lane, forcing out the Lawbringer onto Variety.
Oh, but a turnaround from Twig is here, and actually going to get an ult response from Dimi, so nobody dies on this right-hand side, but both junglers and solo laners use their ultimates.
Trading 2 ults for 2 ults, and that's surprising because didn't really expect that kind of aggression onto the solo lane, but iRaffer made the rotation into mid lane, and we see Ataraxia getting those left side mids and PANDALIKE starting the right, so those are going to be 2 mid Harpies for Hungry for More.
Great start from Hungry for More again, just continuing to expose this gold lead in terms of the experience as well.
So something I just noticed was NRG, they delayed the red buff probably on purpose. Just now picking it up is Yammyn. Maybe might look for an invade with that red buff.
We'll see what they can do with that one, because you saw Adapting camping the right-hand side there onto Variety, who didn't have his ultimate available. However, didn't fancy trying to commit any heavily, and clearly Dimi was just happy to farm up there as well.
And that's something that Hungry for More are going to need to try to keep on doing. For some early lane pressure, they've been controlling the Fire Giant Elementals beautifully so far. They found, I think, 2 out of 3 in the early game. Dimi still doesn't have ultimate, but no rotations, wanting to get more defense on to CaptainTwig with that back.
I mean, it's very early on, but at the moment, Hungry for More have controlled all those middle Harpies and the Fire Elementals. There's only one camp gone the way of energy so far in that one. But I like this freeze on the left-hand side. It's something that not a lot of teams really abuse too often, totally. It allows Freya to free farm safely. Raph is here to support, but it also makes the wave freeze further up, which means Ataraxia is now sat choosing, do I base or do I just have to hang around and wait for the wave to push?
And that's something that a lot of teams don't do because they want to look for other farming opportunities. Those backside left Harpies, they're being picked up by the jungler, and that's why we see emilitoo holding the wave, because normally some hunters will pick up those back lefts in response, and they'll try to clear as fast as possible, go for the back lefts. So if you're not going to get those back lefts on a hunter, you might as well be freezing the wave and allow your jungler to pick up those Harpies.
Now, because of a straight 2-on-2 here as well, you may see energy start to clear out the wave a little bit more. Don't want to lose any minion to the tower here overall, and Hungry for More now have a bit of a jungle advantage here, but there's nothing for them to really take. And NRG's duo, sorry, mid and jungle, both know this rotation could happen.
Something that NRG could be trying to do is by pulling them closer towards that tier 1 tower on the left-hand side of Hungry for More, they could be able to look for a counter gank from Adapting and Yammyn. After they clear the mid wave, that would definitely help out emilitoo survive this early game laning phase.
Yeah, expect to see if we continue to see that pressure in dual lane with the lane being frozen in favor of NRG, then you'll have to see PANDALIKE rotate over there more to support Ataraxia to make sure he picks up farm.
A lot of poke being done onto both sides. iRaffer and emilitoo trying to force out the ultimate out of Ataraxia, and they're very successful in doing so.
And there's no rotation coming out from Hungry for More there whatsoever. They're just going to continue to farm up the mid lane overall. The only one that could have really have made it over there, I suggest, would be CaptainTwig, but overall, no ultimates used by NRG means he could have been in trouble too.
Speed buffs are now respawning. It looks like CaptainTwig was a little bit quicker on the draw, and also picking up another set of elementals onto PANDALIKE, just trying to get ahead of iRaffer.
And good wall control coming out from Hungry for More again. Look at the position of PrettyPriMe. Every single time with those turrets, they will always be positioned to cause disruption and pain to the enemy at every given moment. He's one of the best players at actually placing them in awkward to reach positions.
It just makes you second guess your rotations and positionings to go back into the mid lane. Looks like Dimi was able to secure his own blue buff. Varieties is going to respawn in about 5 or 10 seconds or so. Mid lane though, CaptainTwig looking for the counter aggression. That's why he's hiding in there. He wants to be able to use his ultimate after the abilities of NRG have already been used.
And if not, he can also still soak the experience through the wall as well, which allows him to do that. Fire Elementals have, sorry, right and Harpy to have spawn, I should say. This time around, though, NRG not going to give them up for free. Going aggressive with the Ragnarok. Prime in trouble. Purified very early Prime. And the Duke out from adapting there to avoid the Vulcan ultimate will spell disaster for Hungry for More. First blood to NRG.
Finally, Yammyn with his own ultimate securing it, but without these cooldowns. Now, there could be counter aggression. emilitoo with a beautiful rotation, finding that second kill. CaptainTwig knocking up 2, but you can't really commit. You're fighting 2v4.
Twig will get out of danger, but meanwhile, emilitoo is now back in the fight again, looking towards Variety. Variety doing great work to iRaffer, who stood still. He can't move during the ultimate. The airstrike off the mark from Ataraxia, though, and now he's going to get himself out of danger with the agility and the use of his purification. Variety still in support, but rotating in from Yammyn. Variety's going to juke out some of those wing gusts, otherwise he would have fallen as well.
I love the way that play started with a nice ultimate from adapting, and not only that, he didn't bring PrettyPriMe closer to his team. He first moved out of the Vulcan ultimate and then brought PrettyPriMe back into his team.
And it was mainly just to avoid the Vulcan ultimate. That's all it was. It wasn't for like the safety. It wasn't for any other ability than that. But Hungry for More responding straight away. They're looking at a goal through here. Sadly enough, though, adapting is here, and now we'll force the boys of Hungry for More back.
That's surprising to start that goal for you because they didn't have a Wrath available. Their ultimates are all on cooldown, so they don't have the greatest secure in the world. But either way, sometimes you're expecting some of these rotations to be made onto the middle and soul lane. And with the respawns happening, Hungry for More, they were interestingly enough in the right, I would say, to start it up.
I completely agree. However, Dimi wasn't spotted out doing the blue buff there at all. PANDALIKE was a little bit too late for that, and even Variety didn't know what was going on. He loses his blue buff for free on this right-hand side, so NRG starting to answer back in terms of the early experience and gold they lost.
Making a small and crucial play, I would say, because denying a blue buff on a tier makes him so much less tempting to try to go for the poke exchange. Like, his damage output and sustain is so great to be used when you have that sustain, but now Dimi's going to be able to keep playing on the offensive once he gets his own blue as well.
I agree with that as well, because mainly too, you know, when you've got that mana buff, you can just happily spam your abilities to your heart's content, but now you're like, oh, well, can I get the Fearless here? Do I use my power cleave for poke?
Is it even worth it at this point? Like, I don't want to be wasting this much mana. Ataraxia getting poked out. Nice little hammer by iRaffer. Nobody else really in position, but PANDALIKE making the rotation.
Surprised that actually just stood there and tanked iRaffer there for the most part, just answered back a little bit overall. Right hand side though, Dimi versus Variety going to continue, and Dimi forced back under his tower. Is it gets a tier early on, but Dimi starting to be able to weather the storm a little bit more, has a little bit more regeneration because of the aura.
Exactly, and he has the mana buff to allow him to keep spamming that aura swap. He's going to have the health sustain, whereas Variety, he wins the trade, but he doesn't win the mana trade, more importantly. So the longer this goes, the more favorable it'll be for Dimi.
Well, all the only action we've seen in this game so far was that adapting engagement for the boys, and one of the best things adapting always does, and that's why he's got a 2-level lead, is force a fight, get what he can out, and then immediately go back to farming his own jungle or finding some experience while the fight is still going on.
That's why you'll rarely ever see adapting from behind. He's already 2 levels ahead from CaptainTwig. He's positioning himself offensively just to try to get something out of Hungry for More.
Ragnarok onto the Bacchus there, and Bacchus pulled into the circle of protection. Bacchus still in trouble, but alive for now. Flop will keep him up, and the Intoxicate 2. In the sky, however, is CaptainTwig, who hits 3, but NRG stand tall, and now Variety comes in.
Great rotation from Variety, finding the Fearless onto iRaffer. No jump available, so answering 1-for-1, support for support, and now yet again adapting. Immediately after that team fight, goes in the mid just to farm.
Very good team fight between the two then. Shows the balance between these two teams overall. Hungry for More really stepping it up again against the high-level World Championship opposition.
And they were able to find the initial pick because of the rotation from Dimi. Variety had to back. His teleport was available, but he wanted to back to finish off some items. Getting the blink on the second relic was very crucial for him to find that back.
Now, both teams as well have to be a little bit more respectful towards these support players now, as their items are starting to come online finally. How do the Urchin online for iRaffer? Meanwhile, PANDALIKE about to hit that sovereignty spike, which makes them that little bit more tankly as well, Tolly, so it's hard to bring them down, and if you invest too much, it can get turned on.
We saw that there was a lot of cooldowns used onto PANDALIKE, and he could have used his belly flop defensively just to retreat, but he wanted to make sure that before he went down, that he would get off as much damage as possible, and trusting in his teammates to be able to find the cleanup. So now with the sovereignty, if he does disengage, he'll be able to go back into the team fight that much stronger.
Well, both solo lanes so evenly matched that their gold is almost matching pace perfectly. The build's a little bit different though, as Dimi's not gone back to base, but they're both sat on a kill each as well, as we tune in with iRaffer, who's busy warding up and checking to see if anyone's around.
He's just looking for the potential poke. We saw how much hammer it poked out onto Ataraxia. There's no sustain or lifesteal on Ataraxia quite yet, so this is going to favor emilitoo if he can find the 1v1.
iRaffer looking for the hammer onto PandaLike there. Not just for free poke, but also to get that gold online from Talori. But right-hand side, Dimi forced to ultimate, and he will get the stun off on CaptainTwig, but a good ult from Variety. Has he got the mana for a Fearless is the question, though. And I think the answer is no. Variety forced to run away from the engagement.
And now adapting, coming from the left-hand side. Variety, no Lawbringer, has enough mana for a power cleave sustained. He is topped off, but no more mana. Adapting with a 2-level advantage over Twig. Going to be looking for a blue buff invade 1v2.
And you actually saw Hungry for More trying to stop the Gold Fury there, but iRaffer was there to stop them doing that. This blue buff will go the way of energy here. So stolen again, denied from Variety one more time.
Great teleport coming from Dimi onto that ward behind the blue buff, making it a 2v1 now against Twig. And now after that blue buff, just stealing speed.
And that's down to Dimi zoning away CaptainTwig there from allowing him to even get into the buff. The rotation came from Hungry for More, but they were being pressured by an Isis and Fafnir in mid lane.
But now Ataraxia, he's using his passive to rotate in this team fight. We see emilitoo on the left-hand side, so Hungry for More, they do have a 5-on-4 if they elect to push the issue.
That's true. I like the rotation from Ataraxia, though. You called it out, you know, coming in from the base straight there. And if there's nothing going on, which there wasn't, it was a little bit too late, you can still get back to lane in time and find some farm.
He's getting the back rights, and now he's going for the back lefts immediately after waiting for the wave to enter his tower is emilitoo, though. He might be freezing the wave, recognizing that Ataraxia did make that rotation.
4-on-4 in the right-hand Harpies, and immediately Twig forced to purify away from the Ragnarok. Adapting, take a bit of free poke, flop. A little bit off the mark there from PandaLike, as was PrettyPrime's ultimate there as well. So both teams duel it out. The right-hand Harpies go to energy as Yammyn picked him up.
Adapting was doing such a great job at juking every single ability. He also predicted that he was about to get belly flop from PandaLike, immediately used that Sanctuary in anticipation of PrettyPrime landing that ultimate. So even though Hungry for More were a little off the mark, though, Adapting doing a great job baiting those cooldowns.
And he's now 2 levels over CaptainTwig, still at level 14 with his second speed buff now online. Could look for some more aggression in mid, but Prime gave him a lot of free poke there, so Adapting's going to be very respectful of that.
He does have Seething Howl for the sustain. He could just try to go onto this red buff immediately after. This is going to be the 3rd or 4th invade already total coming out of energy.
And in the sky is Twig, though, looking to try and turn this one around onto energy, who have overextended here. The jump being down for Adapting, but he brutalizes it away, and the flop misses too. Adapting, playing his god to perfection, timing, and listen to the sounds.
A clean disengage coming out of energy yet again, and now they're going to stick onto Variety, just poking him out ever so slightly. Meatball going to connect onto iRaffer, but emilitoo is pushing the issue.
Forced to Sanctuary there, and emilitoo forced to Sanctuary in response as well. Good sank from him to avoid a lot of that extra burst damage from the backfire, but Hungry for More feeling themselves a little bit, and they're looking at Raffer, whose Dragon Form was on cooldown. Circle of Protection from Yammyn turns it again, and with Dimi here as well, they'll pick up PandaLike.
But he's not done yet. He's going to go onto Twig, Adapting, finding the stun with a nice body block, preventing the dash. That's going to be 2 free kills. Variety with the whoop into a Lawbringer, luckily preventing the stun from Yammyn.
Very good Lawbringer coming out, but now this could be spell dividends for energy, because Hungry for More, they've only got 2 members to defend the Gold Fury. Vulcan ultimate connects, and he secures the Gold Fury. Hungry for More from downtown.
Oh, they weren't able to disengage fast enough from the Gold Fury, because had they all walked away from that circle in time, that Vulcan ultimate would have been immune from the Gold Fury, because he's not inside the circle to do the damage.
So the gold is now even between the two once more, and energy will not be happy about that one. At the same time, I'm not sure they knew exactly when Prime's ultimate was up. It was a little while ago when we saw the skirmish in mid lane, but I thought maybe it was down by that point.
Either way, though, despite Hungry for More getting the Gold Fury, energy has a very comfortable experience lead in order to still push the issue in these team fights, Adapting with a 3-level lead, and with Dimi getting to late game form with Amaterasu, it's really hard to get away from the movement speed he can provide for his team.
And the funny thing is, you mentioned about team fights, and that's what it's really been focused around here, Tolly, as well. It's not really been about objectives like Gold Fury. Yes, you know, invades have happened so far, but it's mainly been 3-on-3, 4-on-4 the whole game.
And it's going to be another invade. Dimi's backing, but his teleport is available. iRaffer was trying to spot it out. Speed buff has been taken from Hungry for More, but the blue buff's about to respawn.
Yeah, Twig's in the mid lane there with it, as you can see. And with that turret there, iRaffer's going to have to back away. Nearly getting a bit poked out once more by Twig on Ratatoskr, who's level 13 now. And we're just waiting on the final relics coming through from the supports.
And I'm really surprised that this game, there's been no action at all in the dual lane between Ataraxia and emilitoo. I was expecting some sort of rotations from Twig trying to shut down emilitoo. And now I think once it gets to the late game, energy between the Freya and the Amaterasu, it's going to be very difficult for Hungry for More.
Poke walls over the right-hand Harpies once more, but this time energy will take them out as Dimi, rotated by PandaLike, will fall back. Now, you mentioned the dual lane as well there, Tully, between emilitoo and Ataraxia. I really feel that these two, if you had to name them as old North American players, this would be Zapman for emilitoo versus Barracuda of Ataraxia. They will never trade off in this. Ataraxia is just happy to farm up and play the team game. emilitoo, though, he just wants blood the whole time.
Absolutely, and that's why we see these rotations from Ataraxia. He's trying to help out his team defend his own buffs. We see a little bit of action. Dimi poking out Variety with the rotation from PandaLike, finding the nice little stun into the belly flop, but it's only Variety in position.
Dimi very patient there, not using his ultimate, not panicking too much. I mean, if Intoxicate gets used by PandaLike there, he drops below 25% health quite easily. Talking about someone at 25% health, CaptainTwig, forced to run away in his jungle, has speed buff as well, so he will match pace with Adapting.
And I like what Adapting did. He forced him all the way back under the tier 2 tower, which gives mid lane a lot of pressure. Now, Dimi having to hold his own tower 1v2, Adapting underneath as well as iRaffer.
But while that was going on with the pressure, the left-hand side, emilitoo did steal away the red buff from the enemy jungle of Hungry for More here, as Ataraxia was not back in lane in time, and now they can pressure the mid lane instead.
All the zoning done from Adapting onto Twig allowed this rotation from emilitoo from red buff to middle, and now Yammyn and emilitoo securing the tier 1 mid tower. NRG doing a small and calculated steps. Every little step that they do is just so meticulous about finding the objective.
I think that's what the meta is right now, Tolly, isn't it? It's all very tactical based these days, at least especially in Europe as well. It's always seems to be all about tactics and positioning and finding the right objective, not about a massive team fight that wins you the game.
It's all about trying to reposition the enemy in your favor. If they go to the right, you're going to be able to take out mid very freely, and that's exactly what NRG have been doing this game so far. Adapting still just casually walking away from any aggression. Dimi just getting the tier 1 on right.
So mid tower down, right hand tower down. Favor of NRG again. They extend their gold lead a little bit more, and when you take into account the Gold Fury went the way of Hungry for More, it's a pretty good situation for them to be in now.
Absolutely. Had they gotten that Gold Fury, though, that would have been a huge little gold spike in their favor. Probably would have been about 4,000 gold now.
Well, a minute and 20 until the next Gold Fury comes up now, and I think we will see a lot of attention paid to that one between the two, and this time around I expect PrettyPriMe will not be allowed to just ult over the wall and pick up a free one for Hungry for More.
Absolutely. With NRG having this kind of experience lead and the late game prowess of emilitoo and Dimi, they definitely want to be able to force these team fights momentarily. They have some decent wards around the Fire Giant. Look at this. They're spotting out every single position that CaptainTwig is making.
Very full. Nice penetration build coming online from Ataraxia here as well. Just rely on the explosive bolts, the crits to really come into play there, but mainly focus on the penetration side of things. However, emilitoo now working on his Witchblade after the usual call we see coming out from Freya.
And I like that style to go for the Witchblade, trying to get the physical protections, trying to limit the attack speed from Ataraxia, because there's no sustain from Ataraxia. He's going kind of this all-in glass cannon style build, which I don't mind necessarily, but he has to be so careful because it's very easy for Dimi to penetrate that backline.
He's relying very much so on his passive to get him back out of danger if he gets low overall here, and just forced to recall back to base, come back to the fight one more time, but he has to get out first of all, Tolly.
And with that in mind, Gold Fury respawning in 15 seconds. NRG still doing a good job pushing out mid. It doesn't seem that Hungry for More really want to contest them outside because they have no tier 1 mid tower, and now they're still looking for a play.
There's an advantage for Hungry for More here because you can see Teleport is down on Dimi right now, so Variety could swing into this fight a little bit quicker than the NRG solo laner now, but that turret will slow down the push pressure on Hungry for More here because those minions end up having to tank it as well, especially with a Doom Orb online. It's very, very damaging.
Well, despite the damaging Doom Orb, more defensive build coming out of Adapting after the Void Shield Jotun's Wrath. Now probably going to go into the Spirit's Robe, trying to look for, once he goes engages, he's going to be engaged on immediately after.
Wrath has been engaged on right now, and he's already been forced out of the engagement with underhanded tactics. emilitoo going around the corner, though, going to pressure Ataraxia. They're all looking at him, but around the back comes Dimi, and he cleans up Ataraxia before he can get away. emilitoo in the sky, going to force Prime out as well, and Twig looking for an opportunity if he can find one.
Variety, unfortunately, misses the Lawbringer opportunity. Nice knock up onto iRaffer, but that's going to prevent Yammyn going to get hit by that Vulcan ultimate through the wall, but not enough damage follow-up.
And there's the silence coming out as well. PandaLike juggled into the air for a second with his belly flop, and then goes up one more time. Intoxicate does connect, and that means PandaLike forced out, and Prime tried to come back to the action, but Adapting giving chase with a Brutalize, and that will not get purified away. Adapting gets out.
Adapting is never done with the chase. You can always count on that, and NRG finding 3 free kills. Ataraxia just getting picked off instantly before even the ability to use his ultimate. NRG now feeling comfortable enough to get the goal here, especially with that area of effect coerce.
Well, they're leaving Raffer to zone, but Raffer's forced out of his ultimate now, which gives Variety a chance to step up again. NRG reset the Goal Fury for a second here, and they're going to have to zone them away, but Goal Fury is going to go the way of Hungry for More. Variety hits the Lawbringer, secures the Goal Fury again. NRG are just giving away free objectives.
And he finds the kill onto Yammyn, more importantly, because had he not found the kill, that would have been a huge power play. The respawn timers at this point, level 19 tier, level 18 ISIS. This is a point in time where you're going to start losing tier 2 towers off of these kills. So trading, stealing the Gold Fury and trading 1-for-1. And what a great efficient play from Variety.
Fantastic play from Variety. It keeps Hungry for More still in this game again. Go to the graphs and you'll see that that spike in that gold dip again actually kind of equates to, for the stage of the game, the same as the first one. They've evened things out there. Yes, experience still matters though, Toli.
It absolutely does. They're still, even though in the item department, that's what's keeping them in the game thus far. Now, NRG haven't been able to really force the issue because they're still waiting on their level 20 plays right now. Emilitoo still waiting for the level 20. Dimi just now hitting level 20. Once these levels start coming into effect for NRG, that's when things could start really opening the doors for them.
Okay, it's betting time for you, Toli. You ready? We've had Variety steal a Gold Fury, we've had Prime steal a Gold Fury. Who's the next one to steal it?
I don't think there's going to be any more Gold Furies even being attempted by NRG at this point in time.
Done. They're just done.
They're just done.
Towers.
They're not going to go for Gold Fury or Fire Giant until all 5 members from Hungry for More are going to die.
Do you know, that's so good. Let's watch it back. I want to see Variety come in one more time. Because you see him, he just times it to perfection. And actually secures it just about. It's crazy.
Yeah, and he finds the kill onto Yammyn. That was beautiful. Well, that's just enough damage. It has enough base damage to find the Gold Fury last hit, and that's going to keep Hungry for More in the game.
Oh, nice little play from Hungry for More. They've only found 2 kills, but they found 2 Gold Furies, so they add up nicely together. Twig being contested by iRaffer at those right-hand Harpies, but mid lane, still pressure again, and Dimi's in trouble.
Dimi's in a lot of trouble. Forced to use his ultimate defensively, but he's trying to get off the trade poke now with 4 members trying to surround him, but he's too fast. Look at that aura.
That mobility is insane, and now the rotation from NRG is here. Ragnarok used and picking up for a ride is CaptainTwig, forced out around the corner, forced to ult defensively. Circle of protection was used by Yammyn there just to heal him up a little bit. Dimi back to the front side, but Twig's thinking about it.
The ultimate from Vulcan a little bit off the mark, but a nice double Fearless from Variety in the backline, still going aggressive. Now PANDALIKE jumping in with the Intoxicate. IRaffer going into the Dragon form, finding the stun onto Variety, and he's out of position.
The Lawbringer from the back from Variety, but he's getting poked so heavily by Emilitoo. Hungry for More can't get there in time. The Meditate does go off, so Hungry for More can look to win this fight.
And look at Ataraxia, he's diving the back. He finds one, using the ultimate to get out defensively, trying to survive against Emilitoo's ultimate, and that's a whoop. He's trying to buy time, but it's not enough.
NRG are winning this fight, but Sanctuary from Emilitoo, he stays alive for now, and under the tower goes Twig, and the tower shot is enough with Emilitoo. Now he's going to run for the tier 1, as round the corner PANDALIKE was looking for it, but adapting is here. And you can see Yammyn waiting in mid lane, trying to set up his jungler for this pick on the support.
PANDALIKE really needs to find the perfect belly flop to avoid adapting, even going to clap while he's running away. Jukes out the jump, but he can't get away from the Ragnarok immediately after. So it's going to be a 3-for-2 adapting, finding the kill. They could put pressure onto this tier 2 tower.
Now when we go back to the fight as well, actually, it's not to you. No, I thought Ataraxia was thinking about Yammyn there for a second. We're against 2, not so much. Go back to that fight and you saw Twig ult and the Vulcan ult at the same time on 2 different areas, and I think that was a bit of miscommunication. I think they were really looking for the knock up into the Vulcan ult straight away, but the team fight had moved a little bit when the Vulcan ult was already fighting.
It's very difficult to try to line up those abilities in such a chaotic environment. We even saw Variety dive the backline, but he dove into Ataraxia, who was doing so much damage in the backline as well, trying to revenge his teammate.
Credit, though, to Ataraxia, who went to the backline, nearly died for it. Well, he did die for it in the end, but he did turn it around quite nicely there, as did Emilitoo. Those 2 hunters stepped up big for their teams.
I thought that Emilitoo was for sure going to die there. He couldn't have enough time on his ultimate to find the last hit onto Ataraxia, but either way, he did get chased down, and that favored NRG just so slightly. It's really upsetting for NRG, I would say, to not find those earlier Gold Furies, because this would be a totally different game otherwise.
Well, the best thing for Hungry for More there as well is by picking up a couple of kills there. It was only 2 kills, but they were hopefully shutdowns in the majority of things here, and those shutdowns will pay dividends for them in terms of the gold bonuses they get.
They still stall the game out because of the respawn timers, like we mentioned. They're so long that without 4 or 5 members, you don't really want to go for the Fire Giant. There's a lot of contests still coming from Hungry for More. In a 3-on-2 power play, it's really hard to spread those members thin.
And Hungry for More as well, they've really got to focus Freya this game now. Freya's really got off. Look at the build that's nearly complete already. Spare the Magus now online as well. 4-0-4 is right inside Dimi, first into the action, looking towards those right Harpies.
Adapting, was able to push out mid, was waiting for that team fight to start just so he can sneak in from the side. I love his mentality, always lingering in the shadows.
Funny thing coming out from iRaffer here as well. A lot of Asclepius is being built from him right now, and that's actually going to give more sustain towards Yammyn's ultimate, but also his own coerce. It will heal him for more in these engagements too, which is one of the only reasons he's really getting it. Plus mobility as well. And
magical power making him hit a little bit harder, so that's going to be a nice little attempt. Dimi could chase down Variety, but it's just going to be a farming game because Gold Fury has respawned. At this time, NRG, they don't feel confident about wanting to start this. They want to go for a team fight.
I mean, Hungry for More have just watched NRG give up 2 this time, so pulling it themselves, they need to be a little bit careful of, especially against an ISIS. And with emilitoo walking around the corner and they know Adapting's around, they're going to just reset it there and just leave that turret whacking away just out of range onto it. It's like a free ward, basically.
Dimi still proxy farming in that where between tier 1 used to be and the tier 2. emilitoo clearing out the Vulcan turret, but forcing out the purification and the ultimate out of Ataraxia. Beautifully done by Adapting.
Well, getting both of those just before this engagement too for Ragnarok alone. This is a good opportunity for NRG to swing around and look for the goal for you. I expect they look for picks first, though, or for the left-hand tower.
This gives Dimi the opportunity to dive Ataraxia. I don't expect Golfier being started with a Vulcan ultimate or Lawbringer being available for Hungry for More. So getting the guaranteed play onto tier 1 tower while you have iRaffer and Dimi zoning.
Well, they pinned them back for the tier 1 tower. Now the red buff being looked at by NRG, but mainly they want to make sure they stay in position as a team here. Variety blinks in, though, looking for pressure on emilitoo. Does juggle him a little bit, but the banish comes out. And Dimi and Raffer turn around to reinforce.
A nice little belly flop onto emilitoo, but not wanting to commit any further than that. iRaffer getting juggled, but look at this CaptainTwig barely able to go into the sky. He could look for the knockup, which would set up the Vulcan ult, but you have to be careful.
He's going to go in and he'll hit 2 and immediately disengage. emilitoo went straight to the sky, though, worried about getting ulted, and now that's not available.
And he still gets knocked up either way by the Bacchus. Vulcan ultimate coming out, but it's on the ice. It's going to pop that circle of protection, healing up quite a bit.
Twig's still in trouble, as is Variety. Lawbringer's in place, but Twig's been left alone, as meanwhile, Raffer was keeping the rest of the team of Hungry for More busy. Variety's still alive for a moment until Yammyn brings him down. So 1-for-0 exchange so far. PANDALIKE looking to bring down Adapt King in the backside here. And now he gets focused by the team. But in once again comes CaptainTwig, who disappears when Yammyn hits him in the face.
Great Spirit Ball. Raffer, though, trying to get the kill onto Ataraxia without any ultimate. He has nowhere to go. And now Yammyn, he's still playing aggressive, though. He has to be careful from the meatball. One meatball backfire would take him out. So instantly recognizing this NRG, they're going to become healthy because let's look at this. It's 5 against 2. They're going to probably start the Fire Giant here. There is no ultimate coming out of PrettyPriMe.
Well, they made Yammyn not able to back on that left-hand side, so it does buy them a moment's opportunity to head back to base and make sure they're on full health for this defense of a Gold Fury or potentially a Fire Giant.
It's going to be the Fire Giant. Whenever you have this kind of damage coming out of Dimi and emilitoo, you're going to definitely want to take it. And there's nothing to sneeze at in terms of Adapting's raw in-hand damage.
Well, can they do it in time? And I think the question is, yes, Variety's not for another 3 seconds, and in 3 seconds, the Fire Giant is already dead.
And 29-minute Fire Giant for NRG, uncontested. This has been such a calculating game out of them, despite it being, 15-4. Those last 3 kills were so important at this stage, though. Those level 20 respawn timers, giving them the opportunity to get the fire finally.
The scariest thing about NRG is when one of their members gets low and they're about to get chased down by someone, for some reason, this switch just flicks in their brains, and they all group up to defend that person. We saw PANDALIKE about to pick up Adapting there, and the whole team just focused a Guardian to bring him down overall and make sure they kept their teammate alive.
It's all about the defensive build out of NRG. We see the Warlock Sash out of Yammyn, which gave him enough health. We see the Mantle of Discord out of Adapting. Obviously, Dimi's going to always be tanky. And then we see the Witchblade onto the Freya, which also gave him enough survivability in these teamfights.
And this is why I'm saying that. I think it's more of a tanky meta this time around, once again, in terms of playing around objectives and tactical teamfights, because it's taking a lot longer for teams to bring down a single target.
Yeah, and the unfortunate fact that there is a Freya late game with Fafnir is what NRG really wanted to. So Hungry for More were not able to shut down that strategy and picks and bans, and now they're going to ultimately pay the price.
Well, actually just have some crit this time round, so we'll see how they can do defending this tier 2 tower in the mid lane. All tier 2 towers still stand for the boys of Hungry for More here, as NRG trying to decide what they want to do with their Fire Giant now.
They found the red buff. They had the respawn from earlier on while they were pushing the tier 1 on the left-hand side. So now putting that onto the Yammyn in this late game form, NRG, they're going to push up middle here with their Fire Giant buff.
But there's no real split push coming out from NRG. The other lanes aren't really pushing in their favor, so there's going to be a hard commit from NRG against a Bacchus and a tier and as well as Jing, I want to mention. It's not the easiest thing to really commit onto here. At the moment, they're just taking a bit of free poke between the minions, waiting for the next minion wave to come in.
And this is not a bad idea for NRG. They have enough time on the Fire Giant, about 2 minutes and 10 seconds. Raffer and Dimi, they are tanking enough, and they have their own self-sustain to be able to tank the tower long enough to find the siege onto it.
Well, the hammer did hit Variety, and Variety's going to return the favor with a nice little Fearless, and a meatball connects too, just poking them down. But in goes Dimi, as does Adapting. Adapting takes a lot of poke. Circle of protection from Yammyn used there, and emilitoo just sat at the back, waiting for Twig to come down. Raffer's the first line of defense. He gets focused on as emilitoo's in very deep, forced to ult. He's so low, emilitoo. I don't know how he's going to get out of this one.
He's going to go into the sky. That's how he's going to get out. Variety missing the Lawbringer, trying to still commit. Raffer is solo, going to get juggled into the sky. Meatball confirming the kill, and hungry for more. They're not done yet.
Twig wants to chase and gets the stun off, and he does find Adapting, but Adapting gets back, and a flop from Panda continues the aggression on towards Yammyn, but the boys of Energy fall back with the Fire Giant. Remember that they have the Fire Giant here, and they're losing a tier 1 tower.
They're going to lose CaptainTwig because of that spear ball from a long distance. That was, what, 869 damage, max distance. And that's why you never have your back turned to the enemy right there.
And on top of that, Yammyn just comes up big there. Obviously, the worst thing was that he was tanking the tower too. I mean, of all the people to be tanking the tower, it had to be the guy that gets hit by the Spirit Ball, guarantees it. And because of that, Hungry for More, they get a tier 1. But now, well, it's Energy back on the offensive again.
They still have the Fire Giant for a little bit longer, and they're going to force the issue with the Golf here. They have about a 3,000 goal lead, going to extend to about 4,500 after this Golf here. They could continue to go for the tier 2 mid tower because the difference of respawn timers, even though they lost iRaffer, that's a long respawn timer for Twig, so they have a 20-second window to keep going.
I will say PANDALIKE's been a little bit off the mark with these belly flops so far this game. He's not really found as many as I would have liked to have seen. We have seen Energy group up quite a lot as well, but these flops just been only hitting a singular target more often than not, which isn't something we're used to seeing. Variety mid though, under pressure.
And now we're going to see Variety trying to hold onto the tower. Another Spirit Ball just chunking, but look at this, Adapting in the back with a nice knockup from Ataraxia though.
What a great gust from Ataraxia to keep himself alive. Dimi will force them back enough for the tier 2 tower though, but Ataraxia is standing tall against Adapting, timed it to perfection.
And this is just going to be another clean disengage, I would say, from Energy. They don't want to overcommit. They're not going to give up too much as well because Fire Giant's going to respawn in about a minute. The most thing that they could lose is probably a tier 1 on right.
Overall though, from Hungry for More's point of view, I'm okay with this. I mean, we lost a Gold Fury in a tier 2 tower when the enemy had Fire Giant. That's great.
Great hold, I would say. They could have probably got more though because they found the kill, they found the tier 1 tower. If CaptainTwig didn't die there, more than likely that would have been a tier 2 tower siege in Hungry for More's favor.
Very, very true. They could look for tier 2. I mean, could they though? Because 4 members of Fire Giant still. You saw how quick Dimi was back on the map as well. I think it would have been more difficult, but they at least would have had 5 members still.
Well, the thing was, PANDALIKE was so healthy, and there was a lot of relics being down on Energy, right? Without the Purification, without the Sanctuary, one belly flop into Vulcan damage at this stage of the game could easily knock out Yammyn or emilitoo off the map.
And you saw the Fearless coming out from Freya then. At this stage of the game, as you were saying, like, Dimi doesn't care about that sort of damage, especially with the sort of build he's got here. Very tanky and sustainable, and all frontline focus, just disrupting and being an annoyance.
Trying to find the wards is Energy. They know when the Fire Giant's respawning. Hungry for More, they're going to need to hold this, which should be not the easiest, but not the hardest thing in the world either. They have the tools at their disposal. Variety has been making such great plays in the backline by finding the multiple man Fearlesses.
Surprised Energy haven't pushed up the lanes first of all. Look at that right-hand lane. If they lose this fight here, they could be pressured on the right-hand side. Meatball from onto emilitoo, but PANDALIKE just committed, and PANDALIKE is gone.
And just like that, another member being targeted down, Adapting, finding CaptainTwig, going into the sky, and now without that important ultimate, that's going to be a Fire Giant. It's going to be up to PrettyPriMe to find the steal.
All Variety. Those two have come up big so far. Can they do it again? Variety steps forward first of all, engaged on by Dimi and Adapting. Great meatball into the knockup from the Fire Giant. Caused a lot of poke onto emilitoo and iRaffer, but they're still fine for now.
PrettyPriMe has just been so on point with these meatballs, trying to find the overcommitment. emilitoo getting knocked up twice in a row, but another clean disengage, I would say, because that's how emilitoo find the original kill.
Trying to force it, and Twig is now back in the action too. Doesn't have his ultimate this time round, however. Energy haven't done the Fire Giant yet, and you can see the respawn is starting to come through for PANDALIKE slowly but surely, which is meaning that Energy's power play is about to end.
Yeah, and they have to disengage now immediately. They're really worried about the combination between Variety and PrettyPriMe. Variety's baiting himself out, which gives PrettyPriMe enough distance to really find those meatballs, which constantly hits emilitoo.
Yeah, completely agreed. Full builds are near enough complete for Energy, though. Hungry for More, a little bit further behind on some of them, as you can tell, in terms of some empty slots still being available for them.
And it's going to be a 35-minute grouping up around the Fire Giant. Gold Fury's still down. There's a lot of towers for both of these teams, but you don't really want to go for the towers up until you find some picks, as well as maybe Fire Giant.
Mainly Fire Giant, that's the main focus really between the two. Wall coverage is now in Hungry for More's favor for a moment or two. And you can see Variety and PANDALIKE, the first two to walk forward, but they will be focused. There's no fear from Energy and focusing them down. And when you say that, look at what just happened to Variety. emilitoo just ate him.
And Dimi in the backline, zoning out PrettyPriMe. We have Twig in the sky, a nice little ultimate, gonna find a stun onto PANDALIKE, and another Vulcan ultimate though, it's gonna hit Dimi.
Only Dimi, and that's it. And now PANDALIKE pays the price. iRaffer goes in, and they're looking towards Ataraxia, whose airstrike does pick up emilitoo, but Dimi and adapted aren't done. They want Prime. Prime forced the Sanctuary. One more hit is all it needs. The meatball was coming, but it wouldn't be enough.
That's 4 kills already. Ataraxia is the only surviving member. He cannot possibly steal this Fire Giant, especially without his ultimate. There's 4 members surviving from NRG.
Ataraxia.
emilitoo, though, there's no way. There's no way. Now he's going for a speed buff. He wants to make sure that NRG doesn't steal his speed buff away, just to make more of a power play.
I agree. He's going to be too late for this one now, although he's going to show his face, and he may need to be a little bit careful here, because he's going to get engaged on again by NRG. Ataraxia is buying time for his team, but he's not buying time for his own life.
Not at all, and that's going to be Fire Giant for NRG. They have a huge window to go for some of these towers if they wanted to before they back. Instead, liking to play it very safe, just going to push out the wave and then go shopping.
Surprised that when we didn't see have energy there, they could have actually waited for the respawn of Freya. Potentially there if they wanted to, you know, instead, because we were going to go back to base anyway.
Oh,
they
okay,
could wait for Freya to come back up. Some emilitoo had the buff as well. And at first I thought that's why it was so slow. It was slow because emilitoo wasn't there anyway.
The problem is variety with teleport might have been an issue to deal with. And if there's a ward from Hungry for More that spots out that strategy from NRG, then that would make things really awkward because they're going to take so much poke from Fire Giant over time that variety could maybe shut 1 or 2 members down.
Rewarding, but very risky for the fact of what you were trying to really attempt there. So 4 members will have the Fire Giant energy. They're going to head straight to the left-hand side by the looks of it, around the Gold Fury pit. They do have a tier 2 tower on that side to still bring down as well. With that full minion wave moving up with him, that looks like the plan.
That's what they're grouping up for. They have a 9,000 gold lead. They're going to try to do something with it with the Fire Giant on top of this. Going to group up for this tier 2 on the left-hand side. There's going to be no split pushing. They just want to get them kills. We saw how powerful the setup is for emilitoo.
I'm not sure what item I'm seeing there. I'm trying to work it out what it was on their side because that tower, I believe it was doing reduced attack speed, which tells me that somebody's picked
Emperor's
up
armor, yeah.
Emperor's armor this game.
Right.
Yeah, I just
That's
can see it in the
iRaffer.
build. And obviously it does reduce it a little bit. It's not something you see too often, but it can make an impact. And it does it to Phoenixes as well, as you can see.
That's what he's doing. iRaffer, though, great pickup onto Variety yet again. Freya doing so much confirmed damage during the bite.
Yammyn going to get the first kill onto Variety there, forcing back Hungry for More a little bit more. emilitoo predominantly went to this guy very early, but now Twig's up there instead, thinking about it, trying to juggle them back a little bit more. Overall, though, NRG don't really care too much. They're mainly looking for more kills or the Phoenix.
emilitoo taking a lot of poke, but nowhere for Twig to go as he comes landing down. Sanctuary Force out of adapting. The left side Phoenix gonna fall. Very clean from NRG.
ML's doing too much damage. Emily is just going off the charts now in damage. She's like 3-shot anybody in this game, and that's something you don't want to deal with. Credit to how much damage Prime is doing on the Vulcan, but it's not enough to weather the storm with the burst damage that's coming out from NRG.
Something that NRG's doing that's so smart is they're abusing the fact that emilitoo's damage is so high at this point, and they're going on tier. They're not allowing him to utilize his passive, which gives him 1 second of maximum CC immunity.
Well, second Phoenix now being looked at as well. PANDALIKE trying to zone out, but gets stunned and stunned again, and then stunned a 3rd time as well. And he just managed to belly flop away, but the Phoenix does not survive.
And neither does Ataraxia. He's going to fall, and that's going to be NRG getting the 2nd Phoenix. They don't feel confident enough to go for the 3rd one. Variety is respawning, and a tier can hold on his own because these multiple man fearlesses. He has his ultimate. He has Blink for the easy setups.
Yeah, Fire Giant does go down. Tower's still standing there, boys. Thank you. It does finally get brought down. Now they can look towards the Phoenix against 3 members. The front line is here, but iRaffer reducing the attack speed of this thing is making it a little bit more difficult for Hungry for More to defend.
Circle protection was used. Vulcan ultimate off the mark. A nice sanctuary from emilitoo on the backhand side. The ultimate from Twig doesn't land onto anybody, and yet again, he's going to fall. Adapting credit with that kill. PrettyPriMe getting chased on the left-hand side by emilitoo and Dimi, finding a nice knockup, but you can't escape the Valkyrie's discretion.
I've got to say that meatball was perfectly placed from Prime, but a great response with the Valkyrie coming up from emilitoo going, nope, I ain't getting knocked up, you're still going to die. And with that, NRG looking to take down game 1 against Hungry for More here, 27-6. I tell you, overall, that scoreline in terms of kills does not give credit to how well Hungry for More played that set.
Absolutely. Those 2 Gold Fury steals is what allowed them to stall the game out to 40.5 minutes. And that's very impressive, I would say, from Hungry for More to keep themselves in the game for that long against such an elite team from NRG.
I mean, Golden experience-wise, the early game, they did control it very, very well. Then they fell behind, but the Gold Furies kept them even overall. Experience was a majority factor.
They weren't able to make the offensive plays, Hungry for More. They found the responses that they could potentially against NRG. With those steals, they could never really push past that invisible tier 1 tower line, except for the one time when they defended their tier 2 in mid.
It was a Fire Giant as well.
Into the Fire Giant, after that one pick, though, that was just so unfortunate. You never want to have your back turned on the enemy.
Feels bad, man. Okay, game.